What's up, man? It's a CypherTalk, and boy, am I excited to be on this one. Um, we have here Patrick, aka
aka Dasein, aka Hilarious Virus.
oh snap, and we have a lot of things to talk about, and I feel very good about today. We are hanging out here, in Canadian footwear. Whew, I was like holding my breath for that 10 seconds of silence, Andrew. Whew. But I get to breathe now. So I'm going to breathe really hard on the mic. Anyways, Canadian Footwear, we fit you. Their mission is to provide the very best footwear and foot care in a safe, healthy, and positive environment. We are in Winnipeg and Calgary. And if you need expertise, you need that expertise on your shoes, on your feet, they got your back, man. And also me and Mark San Juan work here. So Mark is the cobbler, and maybe you've seen his commercial on TV. Who knows? He's been getting a lot of shout outs for that. So, and in some versions, I also make a cameo. Anyways, back to Patrick. And Patrick, what's up, man? What's been going on since you've been last? You've been here last on the podcast.
Ooh, just like school and stuff. Been focusing on dance. I know me and you have that those dance performances coming up. I don't know if you started working on that choreography yet, but I got to do that still.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. And me and Patrick also teach at Rising Star Academy of Arts. So if you guys are wondering what's going on with those guys, well, we teach there. No, I've choreographed some because I had to because I have competitive kids.
Oh, right.
You have
right,
recreational
right.
kids,
I have
right?
recreational kids.
So they're just performing at recital.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is in the middle of June. But my kids, they start performing in March. So I'm supposed to get the choreography done by the end of January, and then should be good to go. But that's just how it is usually. I'm usually the late one.
Oh yeah.
And the same thing with Nim. When Nim taught there, he was the one who's like, oh yeah, I'll just choreograph this because he had recreational kids too.
Yeah, exactly. He told me to just like start it by January.
Yeah.
So I got to do that. I've never choreographed anything though. That's the thing.
Really?
Yeah, like ever.
Like don't you choreograph little sets with you and your crew?
Yeah, with Remedial Crowd, like we barely do team sets. Like we'll do it for
Yeah.
fun, but it's not like we remember it,
Well, oh yeah. Well, that's the freestyler's life, man.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I was teaching a combo on Thursday for my rec kids, and I started freestyling instead of doing the choreography that I made up because I made it up on the spot. Right? I'm like, okay, guys, we're gonna do this choreography. I made it on the spot. Let's go. Okay, let's do this. Roll. And then while we were doing the choreography, I changed it, and I'm like, oh shoot, I caught myself. I'm like, damn, I'm just changing out the choreo. Yeah, that's freestyling, man. Oh, I'm just so used to going off in different things, eh? So that's how it is. Let's talk about your book, man. What's your book about? You just published. You're a published author.
Yeah, I just published through McNally Robinson. The book's called Dasein's Journal, a collection of philosophical thought. Well, I guess to start from the beginning, pretty much when I graduated from my first degree.
And what did you graduate in?
I graduated at St. Boniface with a bachelor's in science, but I studied like bio and philosophy. Anyway, like I talked to my philosophy prof, and he said like I do the reading anyway, so I might as well continue like my philosophy research because that's when I moved to Quebec after, right? Like I took that year off from school.
Yeah.
So at first, like I didn't really think I was gonna write a book. Like I always knew I would write one eventually, but at first it was just kind of an exercise to like refresh like my French writing and like continue my philosophy research. So every Sunday I would dedicate like a couple hours to just philosophy, whether it be reading or writing or taking notes. And eventually I compiled all these notes together, and from November 2015 until about maybe June, July, or August 2016, I just wrote, and then I compiled it all together, and the book was made.
Okay, so it's like a compilation, your book?
Yeah, it's pretty much a compilation from when I left Winnipeg to live in Trois-Rivières, and then when I came back. Essentially the beginning, it starts with, because like I took a critical thinking class, right? So the whole premise is we look at all the ideas that we hold and why we have those ideas. Like what are the origins of those ideas?
Okay.
And then by finding the origins, we'll realize what are our own ideas and what are ideas that we just kind of got from other people
Right.
or other like experiences or whatnot. So the first couple chapters is that it's like, why do I look at education this way? Why do I look at love this way? Like a bunch of important questions that, well, I guess I deem to be fundamental.
Yeah.
And I look at where I get those ideas from. Then after that, I do what's called the Being in Time project.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this book of philosophy written by Martin Heidegger, and it's titled Being in Time. Essentially, he's asking what is being, and then starting from that point, figuring out what is time. So I read the first part. I read it in French. The original's in German. So I compiled French notes, and then I wrote into French those notes so people would have a guide if they wanted to read this work of philosophy.
Ooh.
But the thing is, I know more English folk than French folk, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, if I want to make this more accessible to more people, I decided to translate in English. So that's why the whole book is in English now. And after the Being in Time project, I do what's called the Post Being in Time project. So this is all my thought after I spent pretty much a year just studying this work of philosophy and how that influenced how I look at things.
Right.
And one of the main ideas that Martin Heidegger talks about is this thing called phenomenology. So
Okay. What is that?
Comes from phenomena, which is like the study and then logos or logi, like
Right.
phenomenology, which is essentially the study of phenomenon. So like how does phenomenon, how do we receive it? How do we understand it?
So is that just things happening?
Yeah, it's kind of like things happening or experiences or like facts, ideas, how it comes to us
Mm-hmm.
and how we interpret those things. And I think it's Martin Heidegger that talks about how phenomenology is relearning how to see the world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I thought that idea was pretty cool. And then by doing the Being in Time project and then the Post Being in Time project, you could really see that I have certain ideas that are really influenced by Martin Heidegger, since I did spend almost a year just focusing on that.
Okay.
Near the end of the book, this is right before I go on vacation to the Philippines.
Yeah.
So I decided to just focus on philosophy. So instead of working, I spent about maybe a month and a half every day just doing philosophy. So I would just write, and I call this a period of immersion. Essentially, it's when you put everything else aside and you just focus on one thing that you want to do.
Right.
I know a lot of people do this with like working out.
Yeah.
Like there'll be like 30 days, like a workout challenge. I'm just going to eat healthy and work out. For me, it was just, I'm just going to study and make philosophy, essentially.
Okay.
And then after that, I was able to go to the Philippines, just take the break, vacation, enjoy that. But the cool thing was, since I was kind of in that philosophy mindset already before leaving to go to the Eastern world, I could really see the difference that we have here in the Western world and then how people live and like even think in the East. Then near the end, when I come back here in Winnipeg, essentially I finished the book with kind of what I learned from the East.
Cool.
So pretty much
Cool.
it's all linked to time, right? I mean, it's from beginning of November 2015 up until right before like September 2016.
Cool, man. So where can people get your book?
People can just get it through me. Usually I get batches of 30. I only have one left right now for the second batch, which is pretty cool, actually.
Nice.
I didn't think people would actually be that into like buying my book of philosophy. I mean, no one really reads philosophy nowadays.
Yeah, like that seems like some Bruce Lee type stuff. Or like, oh yeah, that's cool if Bruce Lee did it, but if anybody else who does is like, what?
Yeah,
What are you
exactly.
talking about? No, it seems very interesting. And what are some things that you've learned along the way in like gathering all this stuff for your book?
The main one is just how you change over a year. Like it's only 365 days, right? But I can already see from the beginning to when I started to where I am now, like the change has been huge. And it's not really just like your mindset, it's just how you approach things too, like how you actually do things. Because I think it's in the Kabbalion that they talk about if like if ancient or just knowledge in general is revealed to you and you don't do anything with it,
Yeah.
it not only it's not only a waste, but it'll pull you towards a decline. Something along those words. I'm not too sure. Winston's probably more versed in that because I know he's actually read the Kabbalion as
Oh,
opposed
really?
to I've only read like bits and pieces.
So the Kabbalion, wow, who wrote that book?
I believe it's ancient Hindu text, but I'm not too sure. It's ancient text for sure.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm not too sure where it's from.
Damn.
But yeah, but
It seems like that. It seems that way though. Like if you're not, I mean, if you're not building off what people worked on in the past, then it seems like you're going backwards because you're already doing the same things that they were trying to do, figuring out what they already know.
yeah, exactly.
Right. So it gets all up into that. Like again, and going into like your immersion phase, or is that what you call it, right?
Yeah.
Immersion. Did you see like what were the benefits that you saw from that, or what were some of the things that you saw, like the results that you saw from that immersion phase?
Ooh, I think the biggest thing I got from that period of immersion was just to really love the process of doing it. Like that's when I realized that I love philosophy and I can do this till like the day I die type thing, as opposed to just doing it for the result. So like as
Right.
opposed to just doing it so I can finish the book and then give it to people. It was just to enjoy each time that I'm trying to do the research or type on my laptop or whatnot.
It seems like a lot of discipline to be focused on one thing for like 30 days.
3 days. Yeah.
Did you have to like forcefully be like, okay, now we got to work on this. Now we got to work, and then you find yourself enjoying the process, or was it something that came a little bit easier for you as far as getting focused on this task that you had to do for 30 days?
I think in the beginning I kind of viewed it as work because I'd never done anything like that, right? Like if I ever go to work, I'm paid for it.
Yeah.
Right. But with this, I like consciously decided that I'm going to do this and not work for the next month or so. But yeah, it was hard at first. And then there would be glimpses where I'd be like, oh, this is actually really fun. Like I enjoy this.
Yeah.
And then I would go back to be like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like I've writer's block. Like I don't know what to do. And then I found that the one thing that helped was just almost like just clearing your mind and then just let the ideas come to me and like fully trust that I know enough philosophy that whatever I do write, people will find some value in it.
Yeah.
And even if people don't, like they just don't resonate with it, like that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Eastern and Western world that you were like touching on a little bit, what did you find different about those two things, and what do you think, like how would you compare those? Like let's say like what were the benefits for the Eastern world versus the Western world, and what were the benefits for the Western world opposed to the Eastern world, and like, all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
What did you see?
In the Western world, we're definitely more materialistic and capitalist. Everyone will think that's kind of a bad thing. Just it's like, oh, well, it's all about money, it's all about success. But at the same time, like we do live in a capitalist society.
Yeah.
So we do kind of have to abide by those rules. So it's just
But how, like, don't you think that's sort of a good thing as well? Like, it's a bad thing and a good thing, because
exactly.
if you put too much value on material things, then you kind of devalue other human beings as far as their relationship with you in their lives, in both of their lives and both your lives. And then if you put it too low, then we don't have anything nice to do stuff with, like tools and all that kind of stuff,
exactly.
and technology. Like, part of the capitalist society, I think, anyways, is having all this neat stuff that we could actually talk through, and like this microphone, and like all this like competition and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. So, did you think that was more of a bad thing as Western people are like taking it, or is it more of like a good thing in how they're like kind of using that balance?
I think I think you answered already, because like I think you got it right on you hit the nail right on the head. How yeah, we do live in a capitalist society, and it could be, if you focus too much on like money and success, it could be a bad thing because you neglect like human relations. But if you focus too much on human relations and you can't even feed yourself, then you kind of screw yourself over. So I think you hit it right on the head, because you got to find the middle part, right?
Okay.
And then with the East, it's a much more spiritual place. Everyone's like, there's more family oriented, I find. Like neighbors will say hi to you. Like I was living with my aunt and uncle, and like the moment we got there, like the whole, I guess it's the whole section of their little town.
Like the barrio?
Yeah, kind of like the barrio, yeah.
The section of their town.
Yeah.
So
the Filipino word escapes me, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like
okay.
where the area they live in, and like everyone was already close. Everyone welcomed us as family.
Oh, wow.
As opposed to here, sometimes like neighbors won't even say hi. Like I have a neighbor who lives in front of us, and he's never communicated to us, which is crazy, right? I mean, you live right there, and like I don't know how many kids they have. I don't know their names, but back in the East, like just going outside, people will say hi, be like, "Oh, where are you from?" Start conversations, and yeah, it's just it's different.
Do you think that's a culture thing that's happening, like how people are brought up, or is it like it almost seems like it might be a survival type thing? Because if you're here and you have like your nuclear family and you have like a few friends and you don't say hi to your neighbors, it's fine. You can still survive, right? But then let's say if you're in the East and you have to like, maybe you have to rely on other people around you more closely for you to like have to survive. Do you think that could come into play, like as far as the culture?
Maybe. I mean, culture definitely has a impact on things, because it's how we're raised, right? Like from the get-go, we're already born into this Western world.
Yeah.
Or if it's opposed to over there, from the get-go, you're already born into the Eastern world and their own beliefs and whatnot. And then here, it's like, I think it's just good that I was able to leave for a bit and see the difference from the two. Yeah. It helps you find that middle ground, right?
Right.
But like if I were to be just stuck in one and not see the other side of things, then it would be a whole part missing, right? And it would be much harder to find that middle ground. This kind of relates back to the idea of dualism. There's always like two sides to like anything, right?
Right.
And as opposed to saying like it's either A or B, it's kind of finding like how they combine together, and it's being like A and B.
Right. It's like two polarizing, or it's like a spectrum, I should say. Like it's better described as a spectrum where you have like this idea here and then the complete opposite on the other side. And then you have to find a balance between the two in many cases, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you have that with, I feel like, capitalism and like a free market economy, and also like communism and that. And we see we kind of know what happens when you go to the far extremes.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of issues where you try to get it like in the middle or whatever. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. It's pretty much like playing with like all the little settings till you find what works for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and that's a rabbit hole that I don't know if you want to get into.
Yeah.
Especially with my expertise, I'm like, yeah, let's say this and that, and I don't even know anything about really anything. So let's rewind a little bit and see like how did you like set your foot into the whole philosophy thing? Because I think I only been seeing some of this philosophy stuff from you from like when you started posting it on like Facebook or Instagram.
Oh, right.
I'm like, oh, I didn't know he was into that. That's pretty cool. But how did you get started with that stuff? What's your introduction into that field?
It's actually a pretty common question I get asked, because like people be like, oh yeah, philosophy is pretty cool, but I don't know where to start. My answer to that is just, it was a lot of reading, which is really hard just because philosophy is difficult to penetrate, right? I was first introduced to it in grade 11, I believe, in my French class, and we started studying existentialism. And I just sit there and be like, I have no idea what this teacher's talking about. And I read the book. And
what are you talking about, Willis?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, like, you're just talking for like an hour. I have no idea what you mean. And then reading the book, The Stranger, L'étranger in French. It's written by Albert Camus. I still didn't understand anything that was going on there. And for the longest time in philosophy, like I took philosophy in university and I would just read philosophy for fun, right? At first, I thought it would be a way for me to improve my French.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at it.
Oh, okay.
I never really looked at it as like, oh, I can do this. Like I could be a philosopher one day. It never really started like that. But for me anyway, it was just reading texts that I did not understand.
So how did you come to understand those kinds of texts, or have you understood them since?
I'd understand bits and pieces, but it probably took me like half a decade almost until it finally clicked. We're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. It's like,
Did you
oh,
have
I was
to
right
experience things first before that even like penetrated your mind, or was it just something that was like you had to keep reading and then you finally understand it?
With in school, like in university, it was just keep reading it until I understood it. And then I kind of fine-tuned that to reading it and then just taking what kind of came to me. Like, let's say I'll be reading a text and be like, oh, there's one sentence that really I can kind of relate to or make sense to me. I'll highlight that and I'll ignore everything else until I read it again. As opposed to experiencing things, definitely. Because in the beginning, like I said, I read Albert Camus, who's part of the existentialist movement. So it's the whole idea that humans are thrown into the world and they have like no nature almost. Each individual, their existence precedes their essence, meaning they're born and then they decide what they're going to be or like who they're going to be.
Right. So it's opposite to like the DNA thing where like DNA or whatever instinct navigates your like your personality or whatever. Is
exactly.
it like that?
It's kind of opposite of that. It's like I'm responsible for who I become, and I'm responsible for all the actions I do.
Right.
Which kind of takes like a depressing standpoint, just because like from the get-go, there's no inherent meaning in life, and it's up to you to decide that.
Okay.
Existentialism.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's the whole idea that if I ruin my life, it's completely my fault. Like I can't blame anyone else.
Yeah. But there's also a lot of things that are like not in your control, right? So as far as like, oh, you didn't grow up, like I didn't choose to be Filipino, or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, so how can, and let's say you're living in a place or whatever where you're persecuted and because of your color or whatever or race, then you have no control over that. So if your life is already bad, then how does that come into play with that theory that you just described?
Existentialism. Well, it's the whole idea that like you're not defined by your contingencies. So contingencies are all the little things that you don't control. Like I didn't choose to be a boy. I didn't choose to have black hair. I didn't choose to be of Filipino descent, or I wasn't even choose to be born in Winnipeg. So none of those things on its own define me. Okay. But it's the constellation of all those things that define me.
Okay.
So it'll be like constellation of all the things that like I didn't really choose or like that just happened to me. Yeah. That'll make up part of my essence. And it goes back to the idea that as humans, with the existentialist like point of view, there is no like inherent essence.
Sounds like some deep stuff, man.
Yeah. Everyone's pretty unique.
It would be awesome if we had Stalls in here too to talk about this stuff. He reads a lot of other kinds of books and stuff that you wouldn't regularly see from like I guess a standard b-boy or average b-boy. And it's really interesting. So, like he was talking about like infinity and stuff. I was like, damn. Yeah. Yo, Stalls.
So he's really into meditation.
Yeah, he's into that too. That's when he gets fucking high. So I mean, like, you know. So coming full circle, because I know the listeners want to like hear about this. How does all this stuff has it affected your b-boying? Like all your like in like your philosophy, has it changed how you perceive things and approach certain aspects of your dance?
Yeah, definitely. I think breaking even precedes philosophy, even if philosophy was always there. Sounds crazy. I'll try and explain. It's that from the beginning, ever since I started dancing, there was always this kind of weird feeling that this was more than just making moves or just dancing to the music. Like I always felt like it was kind of improving my life in a way that I couldn't put to words. And then when philosophy came, it's kind of the same thing. It's you just keep doing it and you trust that eventually you'll get better at it. And similar experiences with breaking and philosophy is that when I first started, no one's really on your side. Like my parents never supported my breaking. They thought I was just gonna break my bones and like I was just hanging out with friends. Yeah, snap my neck, exactly. They're like, don't learn head spins. I had some like friends at the time that were just like, this is just a fad. Like, you suck. Like, why do you even do this? Like for the first couple of years, right? Like you're not gonna be good at like ask anyone. The first time you try something, you're not good at it right away unless you're like naturally talented, but even then like talent only takes you so far. And then when you join competitions in breaking, like how many years do you lose until you finally get that one win, right? Like you're just constantly
just ask Mark, man.
Yeah, you go in.
Mark hasn't won an all-styles battle yet.
Like, yeah, it's so mess. Like you're like, and you still do it, right? Like you'll still, because you love doing it. It's just, you keep going in. You're like, oh yeah, I'm excited. There's this new battle. There's competition. I'm gonna go in. Then you lose like first round, and you're like, crap. Well, back to the drawing board, and then go again, and then you lose again. And then how I like that philosophy is that it really made me comfortable with not knowing, or with comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because every time I would read, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't understand what was going on, so I would feel like an idiot. So for a really long time, I was just like, I'm not as smart as I thought I was. Yeah. I'm not as smart as everyone told me I was. And then with breaking too, it's like, oh yeah, I learned this new move. I got so much better. And then you go and then I would lose. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, I guess I'm not as good as I thought I was. And I guess this all kind of came together, oddly enough, right when I was about to publish the book, because I published the book 2016 on December 28th, which was 2 days after the All Styles, or not the All Styles, the Boxing Day Jam. Right. And I remember right before the jam, I always do like not a ceremony. What is it?
Ritual?
Yeah, like a rituals before I prepare. Prepare for like any competition. It's funny because I learned this from back when I used to play table tennis on the Manitoba provincial team. Super nerdy, but like back in the day, I would listen to Eminem's "Lose Yourself."
Oh, nice.
Right? Yeah, it's like pump you up, right? Yeah. So I was in the shower before this competition, and I was playing that, and I was like, "I'm gonna win this time. I'm gonna win this time," and just kept repeating it. And then I stopped thinking for a bit and stopped stressing about it, and I was like, you know what? I've already won the moment I just show up. And then I was just like, okay, there's no more pressure. And like when I got to the jam, I just fully trusted myself. Like I knew if I mess up, like no one's going to notice. I'll be able to pull it off. I'll be able to just have fun and like dance to the music. Self-trust is one of those big ideas that really came to me while studying philosophy and writing my book Dasein's Journal. And it was weird because like it wasn't just me thinking that, like me repeating in my head that, oh yeah, I trust myself, I got this. It was me being that. And I don't know if you noticed, but oddly enough, after each battle, before the judges would choose who won, I would already start walking to the opponent as if I'd already won. Ooh. And I was like, okay, well, and then I didn't really notice till after, when I reflected, after I'd won the whole thing, I reflected and I was like, it was true. Like before I even got there, I had already won. And it's like, it was in my actions. Like I didn't have to think about it. I was. that person already.
Well, it seems like it was in your mindset too. Like I think before the new year, you posted some stuff on Instagram, and then you were doing some like some Halo thing or whatever, and then and you said like next level on the whatever
Oh, yeah, the caption.
the caption, and I was like, oh damn, this is sick. And then when you won the Boxing Day jam, I was like, oh snap. I think it's a true testament of your mindset going in, like a combination of preparation and also like what you say to yourself, which is I think that's really important how you how you speak
How
to
you talk to yourself. Yeah, you're definitely right. Like,
Now, were you speaking this stuff like out loud to yourself, or was it just in your mind, like when you're like I'm gonna win
in the shower, it was out loud.
out loud? Yeah. And I think that's the best way of saying it. Like, some people think it's like weird or cheesy or something like that. But then if you think about like any NBA player or any high level athlete, they're not gonna be like saying, "Oh, I'm not gonna get this shot in," or I'm like, or I'm gonna lose this game or whatever. They're hyping themselves up and getting that mentality that they're gonna win, and it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like you said it. Yeah, you got it right on the head again there, where it's like, for the longest time, I would kind of say my mind wasn't fully on my side, where there was that doubt, there was that like being anxious about things, even like speaking in like public. Like if I just wanted to say hi to someone, I would be like, oh, this person doesn't want to talk to me. And then I realized, like, I took a step back and it's like, why is my mind telling me all this negative things? Like, where is this coming from? And it really came to like retraining my mind to be like, okay, you got this. And I didn't really notice that till like I started taking boxing maybe a few months ago now. And when there's times where it's so hard that I don't like, my body can't handle it anymore in the workout, I would notice that the first thing my mind would say was like, you got this, buddy. And like, it would motivate me, as opposed to before, if I was working out when I was younger, it would be like, it's too hard. Just go home, just give up. And like, once your mind is on your side, like the things you can do it's pretty crazy. Like,
so the question I have for you is, how did you develop that? Was that just something where you like experienced enough negative where you're like, okay, maybe I should switch up my approach and then test this approach, and if this approach works, then I'll just keep using it? Or was it something that you adopted from somebody telling you, or you reading it where you're like, okay, this sounds like this could work, I'm gonna try this, and then I'm gonna work it out for you? Or like, how did that develop within yourself? Just so that the listeners will be like, oh, I could apply this to
so they have like some sort of context. For me, I went to a really rough breakup. So like after that, it was just like, going through that, I felt like I was in a cloud, like I was in a daze, like I wasn't as happy anymore. I couldn't really eat. Like, everyone goes through a breakup, right? Like, it kind of like, it destroys you, right? And as a kid, it was just like, okay, well, the only thing you really want is to be loved by someone. And for the longest time, it was just like, okay, well, let's go out, meet new people. And then it was like, again, related to breaking, I would like set up a date with a girl that I really liked, and then she would bail on me last second.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, come on, like put salt on the wound, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, well, breaking, you lose. What do? Get back up, do it again. And then over and over and over again, like so many times. Like, I remember one time I got flaked on every day of the week. Like, so bad. And then it was like, and after a while, I came to a realization that like, it was when I had I had a girlfriend at this time. And I was sitting there and I realized, I was like, I still feel like crap. Like, I don't feel as awesome as I did before. And it's like, why is that? And it came to the realization that no one's gonna make me feel good, right? Like, it's an interior issue.
Right. It's like within yourself. Like, like how they say that happiness is within yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's when it really, Yeah, exactly. It's like hippie, but it's like it's
It's
so
true.
true.
It's
It's
true.
so true. It's so cheesy, but it's like at
And
the end of the
well,
day, it all kind of revolves around love.
yep.
And before you can really appreciate someone loving you, you gotta fully love yourself.
Boom.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
knowledge
huge.
dropped right there. Andrew, do you hear this? Take some notes, man.
Yeah,
No, but like, no, it is true. And a lot of cliches are cliches because they're true, right?
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's just a weird battle that we have in our mind that like, oh, that's super like corny and
Yeah, it's
stuff.
so cheesy, but it's like you gotta go through the full circle to realize that it's like, oh yeah, it is true.
So that's how you kind of develop that mentality is through, through getting like flaked on,
Yeah,
like
I get flaked out, rejected over and over and over again. And then, like, it wasn't just rejections for a while. Like, eventually, I kind of figured things out. It's like, oh, okay, so, like, this is what girls like. It's not what Hollywood or, like, Disney taught me things were. And then, after you got, like, some successes, like, I had a really cool girlfriend uh, and all that. But it was like, it's not just other people liking you. It's like, you got to like yourself.
Mhm.
And then I took a little break and then just really figured out what are the things that I like to do. What is it that I want to see my life be like? And once I figured that out, like I was able to like fully be there for someone else, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Because it's like I wasn't relying on someone else to make me feel good.
Mhm.
I'm perfectly okay with or without someone. But now that I'm in that position, then that's I can like authentically be like, yeah, my life is good already. Like I would like to make your life better too.
Okay. Nice. Woo. Okay. Do you do any meditating at all? Like, are you kind of like, because you mentioned that Stalls does that, and like, yeah,
Meditation, yeah.
I know Stalls does that, but um, is there any like thing that you do to like put yourself in, I guess, call it the zone or whatever
Oh
when
yeah.
you're dancing, or even if you're just trying to like take a breath and refocus your mind on a certain task?
hmm Yeah, I definitely do meditation. Not as dedicated to as before. Like before, I would take 20 minutes, just sit down in my room and stare at a white wall till my mind would just like shut up. Because essentially, what meditation is, right? Like you're trying to turn your mind off and not have the connection that oh that I am my mind. It's like no, my mind's kind of just a tool. There's that like your spirit, your soul that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds cheesy. I know not everyone believes in a soul, but like if you ever to just sit down and once you get to that moment where you shut off your mind and that you're still there, like the soul becomes really obvious.
Well,
I think
there's a
anyway.
lot of it's really loud out there, if you will. Like if it's a lot of things are coming at you, a lot of
hmm
stimuli, like your phone, your laptop,
Yeah.
like all this
All the
stuff.
sounds, like all the cars passing by
Yeah,
outdoors.
everything is trying to get your attention, and you're like divided between all this stuff.
hmm
And sometimes it's good to just not think of anything, and sometimes it's just good to like focus on like a reflection almost. Like,
Yeah.
okay, what do I need to focus on? Because I feel like that's really important, and that's
hmm
where like sometimes good ideas come from that. So
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, I guess there's two types of meditation. Like, from the East, it's yeah, turning off your mind and just sitting there, being present to the moment.
mhm.
And in the West, we have what's called philosophical meditation, which is asking those important questions. So one of them is just spending time every week or every day, every couple days, whatever it is for you, and asking yourself, what are the things that I'm anxious about? What are my what do I have like an issue with? Uh, and then being able to sort things out between things that are fundamental problems in your life versus like little menial things like, oh, I got into an argument with my mom about like her not picking me up or for her forgetting about that I had work or something. I mean, that's not really a big deal, right? Like you just say, like, sure, the other person forgot, whatever. But like a fundamental problem is like, why do I like some like, let's say, what is it?
Or why like you would like end up in a bad situation all the time, like
Yeah,
repeatedly.
yeah, repeatedly, exactly. Like, why am I always in these situations? Yeah, exactly, where I'm not getting what I want, or uh, why is it that every time I go out in public, I have this weird like sense that people don't want me there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's weird questions and weird feelings that are problems to people, and it's always there, but people tend to ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like it sucks because it's so important and you shouldn't ignore it. But we live in a world now where you can just go on YouTube and just like watch something for like 3 minutes, and then you just, oh yeah, I feel a little bit better. And
Yeah.
watch another video. Oh yeah, I feel a little bit better, and then you forget about that issue.
It's part of the instantaneous like relief of not having to deal with what you should be dealing with, right?
Yeah.
And I think me and Stalls have these conversations regarding like psychedelics and like or even just meditation, what that forces you to do with like thinking about, okay, what do I need to deal with like right now, and like what's something that's really important, rather than just like trying to like put a band-aid on like put a band-aid on a broken wrist or something, right? Like it's not gonna like, ooh, it's, I guess it kind of feels better or whatever. That was a weird analogy, but like it, like you guys get the point of, you know, it's not attacking the root cause.
Yeah, exactly. It's really,
Right.
and that's what's hard, right? Like, it's so much easier to, like, let's say you're having like a breakup issue, or you're sad. It's so much easier to just like get that bottle of beer, or like drink, or go watch a movie and entertain yourself for 2 hours, or like go play video games because that's what you like to do, as opposed to sitting down and being really present with those like negative emotions or your problems. But it's so important because
It kind of goes back to mental toughness, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna deal with this right now, as opposed to like keep putting it off, and then I feel like you'll feel better after you deal, or even while you're dealing with that negative thing, because it goes to show like, oh yeah, I'm confronting this, I'm attacking this thing, and then and afterwards you'll be like, okay, I'm glad I dealt with that. Now I learned something as well, that I could deal with this, and in the future, if I come across something like this, then I can deal with it the same manner, where I'm overcoming this certain obstacle.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you just ignore it, then like it's still gonna be there, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be there after.
And I feel like it's a huge issue in the West. Like even insomnia, like people not being able to sleep, or having like crappy sleep patterns. And it's because like I ask people about this. It's like, what is happening when you can't sleep? And we're like, either I don't know, I just wake up, or my mind just won't stop talking. And it's because we're not taught to turn off our brains, right? Like even me, if I don't meditate for a couple weeks, like I guarantee if I were to try and meditate today, I would sit there and try to shut off my brain, and then my mind would just be yelling. It would just be like talking, and keep going, and then it'd be difficult to just put that to the side. And then imagine if it's just talking, it's all good, right? Like whatever, like it's just words that my mind keeps saying and it won't stop talking. But if it's talking like negatively, or if it's like self-deprecating, then like that's a total issue, right? Like you're saying that you can't even sit there on your own without your own mind like bullying you, like crazy, right? Like, and then people just like, oh no, I'll just smoke a cigarette, or like I'll just like I'll just do something, and then like I'll ignore it. But in the long run,
it's gonna catch up with you.
Yeah, it's exactly.
And it can, and also I feel like it can manifest itself into different ailments, or like worry and
definitely.
anxiety, and like and physical things like, oh, I feel sick. Well, that's just because like you like bottle up everything, and then you hold tension in some part of your body.
Exactly.
That's what I think happens. One thing that I should mention as well, because it seems like something worth repeating, is me and Stalls were talking about this in a conversation, is like whenever you get like those negative thoughts, because a lot of people, well, everybody gets negative thoughts about themselves or a circumstance, is like flipping that into a positive thing, or how you could turn it into a positive aspect, as far instead of like a negative one, right? Like I think Stalls has a better explanation of it, but he used to like have this wristband or whatever, and then and like kind of flick it every time he has a negative thought.
Yeah.
So it's kind of discouraging the negative thought, and then he would flip that thought when he when he finds it. Oh, negative thought. Okay, I recognize that. I'm aware of that. Boom, let's flip it. So I know we've talked about it a lot. Like, and there's a lot of things that I think the listeners will get out of this podcast, and maybe not maybe not stuff that they would realize is important. But what are some other important things that you think people should know, especially you say in the Western society, since we like obviously live here and spend a lot of time here.
I think that's cool. But what you said about Stalls, how you would use a wristband and like I guess hurt himself. That's sort of like behaviorism, right? Where it's like you see a negative behavior, you punish yourself until you get rid of it.
And then you also see the reward of flipping it into a positive, which is another.
Yeah. And then, to add on to that, I actually don't get into that in my book, but the very last part is I'd say I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. I guess tomorrow's today because, I call that the art of reframing. Mm-hmm. So it's just, if there's any negative thought you have in your brain, like flip it to something more positive. An example could be like, I used to have this idea that like girls wouldn't like me because I'm short. I'm like 5'7", like I'm a midget pretty much. And I would reframe it, be like, oh yeah, like girls love guys that are short. Like they just love when I look up at them, and I can't even like reach up to give them a kiss because they're wearing 6-inch heels, and I can't even like, I'm a little midget. But it's like, it's funny when you say that, right? But it's like taking ideas that you hold that are kind of self-deprecating negative and like finding a way to flip it around. This goes to, I took a position of positivism, so just being super positive. Like obviously it's kind of not realistic, like the world's not the most amazing place, but there's benefits from taking different points of views, right? So from taking that point of view, positivism, it was just like reframe everything so that it reinforces that I love myself. I think because your question was what's something that people could like actually use and like
I think there's already a lot of stuff in this podcast that they can use, but any other stuff that you would recommend for them that has been beneficial for your life, right? So it seems like you're Dr. Patrick. Like
one day I'll be a doctor. That'd be sweet. But one thing that I think we could also add is like with the idea of loving yourself, like go to the extreme. Just because people are afraid of leaving their comfort zone, right? Mm-hmm. They'll be like, oh, like I don't want to be too cocky or anything, but it's like, just try. Like, what's the worst that can happen? So with that, it's like being super narcissistic. Just like for a bit, like don't overdo it. Like don't bring people down, but just be like I practiced that for a bit. Like I would pass through the mirror and be like, oh, I look really good. Even on days where I think I look disgusting, right? Like I hadn't showered for 3 days. My hair is just greasy, but I'm just like, yeah, I look awesome. Or I'll just be like breaking and I'll be like, do something stupid. And I'll be like, I'm so good at this. Just like repeating all these things. And it's like, it's a joke, right? Like you're not actually that much in love with yourself, but it can be beneficial for a lot of people. Cause like, we all forget that we're all human. We all share all these issues. Like everyone's a little bit anxious. Everyone has all the same problems. Like all those problems that you think are so personal to you, it's happened to a bunch of people already. Yeah,
like you're not alone in.
Yeah, you're not alone. Exactly, but
not the only one who's felt heartbreak or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like people should just. I don't know how to put it into words.
Well, I think what you're saying about being like super narcissistic or super cocky or whatever, it has its benefits. Like you could see its benefits and you could see its downfalls.
Yeah, exactly.
And you could take the benefits and apply that in certain situations. Like if you're feeling like really down about yourself one time, oh, I'm aware of that. I recognize that. Okay, let's try to use this tool that I have now of being super narcissistic, add a little bit of that, and like boom, now you're at like a better place than you were before.
Exactly.
So I feel like that's a really good thing to do. And plus you're going to learn something through each phase. Like, oh, and I think that's part of what you're doing when you're growing up is like, oh, I'm going to try to be like this. I'm going to try to be a goth or like whatever. And then, or put myself in a certain position where you know, like it's a bit of an extreme, and then you kind of come back from it. Oh, this is what I learned. This is what's good. This is what's bad, and how it can benefit me in my life, and then I'll go forward from here. So
Yeah.
I like that aspect of that. That's an awesome one.
Yeah, it's the whole idea of like testing your boundaries, right? I mean, on our day-to-day lives, we kind of just do the same thing over and over again, right? Like we're kind of expected by other people to act the way that everyone thinks we are, and that kind of goes back to how we think we are. But I think it's really beneficial to test those boundaries. Like even in my like my practicum when I was teaching, my teacher said that I have a really small voice. Like I don't throw my voice, and like, I've always knew that. Like naturally, as a kid, I was kind of introverted, and like I didn't really have the biggest voice. So that what I tried was just to like almost be yelling in class,
Right.
or, like if I'm in class and then like if I raise my hand to answer a question, just like try to yell. Even like to
I'm
me,
Rick James, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I know the answer to this, and it's like I think that I'm yelling,
Yeah.
but to other people, I might not even be that loud, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you don't know till you test it out. Yeah, and that goes with like everything else. Like I've been a vegetarian for a month.
Whoa.
And yeah, it's like whoa. Like I've never thought I'd be able to do that. But it's all these little things that you just test it out, right? I mean, are you really gonna live your whole life the same way over and over again?
Yeah, and that's what some people fall into that, and then like when they're 50, they're like, oh snap.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do now? And that's when like midlife crisis and all that kind of.
Yeah,
I think that's a part of it. That's part of it, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't get to do what you really wanted to do, or you didn't test how you wanted to test things out, and then you're like, oh fuck, now I gotta buy myself a Harley.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta buy myself a
compensate.
bike. Yeah. So, has there been any kind of I don't know if backlash is the right type of word, but like, I guess I could say backlash with you and like your friends on like how you view things, and you like come back and you're like, oh, I'm a philosopher now and I think this, and then people are like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, definitely. Like, just when I decided to write a book, like when I did that period of immersion, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna write a book, and it's like, so many people are just like, no, you're not. Like, and from the get-go, there's no money to be made in philosophy, and we live in this capitalist society, so everyone's like, if you don't make money, like you're not successful, right? But it's like, and it's so hard to tell people, but like it's not about the money.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really say that till you get to a certain point where like you have enough, and then you realize that. But again, it's like it's not like we talked about this earlier. It's all about just like loving everyone and like being able to love yourself, learning what true love is. Like I think that's huge. But again, it relates back to like the backlash of when you're trying to test out those like pushing your comfort zones.
Yeah.
And like to relate to like me writing philosophy, it's not something I've always thought I would be doing, but it's like when I decided like I'm gonna write this book, total crazy idea at the point at that point, right? And like everyone around you is almost gonna want you to stay the same.
Right.
Like
Right.
my parents, like they're super supportive. I love them for that. But when you first start something new, like they don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
They just want you to do whatever you're planning to do for all those years in the past. Like first starting to break, it's like, why are you gonna break dance? Just stay in table tennis and do that till you're my age. It's like, and then your friends too. It's like I have a small voice, right? So like once I start trying to yell and stuff and like be really loud, it makes everyone feel a little uncomfortable. It's like, who is this guy? Like, what's he doing? Like, who do you think you are? Like, shut up. You're not the loud one in the group. Like, go back down. But eventually, like, people accept you. Like, your real friends will be like, yeah, that's awesome. Even with the positivism thing,
Yeah.
being like super positive, people will just be like, what the hell, man? Like, you're not.
Well,
why are you happy all the time?
I feel like sometimes they don't understand the purpose behind of like what you're doing, and sometimes like they don't understand what the actual goal is for you. Like, cause like you outline what your goal is for your book, right? Like nobody else like kind of put that out there for you. You just like, oh, this is the goal of it. It's not to make money. It's like whatever it is, right? It's supposed to like maybe it's just like I just want this thing to have, and you know, have it spread out to other people, and hopefully it'll benefit them. That could be the goal. And if
Yeah.
you reach like 10 people, okay, then the goal is fulfilled.
Mhm.
It might not be a monetary success, but in your eyes, it's a success because that was your goal.
Your goal, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So, by the way, what was the goal of the
The goal of the book?
Yeah.
For me, the goal of the book was kind of to make philosophy like sexy again.
Okay, like a digestible type thing where
Yeah,
like
like
you want to be like this age of like Bruce Lee philosophy where like
Yeah.
like the water thing with the water flowing and
Yeah.
crashing in there.
Like, yeah, you definitely hit on the head again, where it's like, it's just about how, like, I want to share it with the world, right? Like, the impact that philosophy has made on my life. I know that not everyone's going to be a philosopher. Like, it's not for everyone. But for me, it was just like, all these things were revealed to me just through doing philosophy. And if I can just share that, yeah, with like one person, like, awesome, right? And like, while selling my books to like friends, family, and like other people that I knew, there's people that come up to me and be like, this is the first book I bought since I became an adult. And I was like, really? And he's like, and they're like, yeah. Like, I'm like, that's super awesome. Like, I'm glad that I can give you the opportunity to get into reading, because like reading's huge. Like, I'm gonna be a teacher, and like reading's so important. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
learn so much off people. Like I don't understand why people don't read, right? Like, it's like some author spent years doing research and like living through experiences so they could write it all down in a condensed form, and you can read it in a couple hours.
Yeah,
And, like, you don't want to do that? Like, what?
I think not only, but it seems like authors know that deal like better than anybody else because they actually have done that, right? They've painstakingly gone over like, oh, how should I say this or whatever, what word here, and like, how do I structure this sentence or whatever like that, and then and put it out there. Rather than people who are just like me, who are like, yeah, I'd rather wait for the movie. Like, if there's a Dasein's movie,
Yeah.
like Dasein's Journal, the movie, I'd be like, oh shit, I want to see that.
It'd be pretty boring. I'd just be sitting at home writing and reading,
Writing and then talking, like narrating it.
and then like going out and seeing if these ideas are useful in real life.
But to me, like, I think literature like that is really important, where it's like, oh, this is an idea, try and use it, and then you go out after you read that certain section, you're like, okay, I'm gonna try this, do it, test it out for a while, and then if it works, it's like, damn, this is sick, and then now I can read the next section, or like maybe you do it like that, or maybe you do it all at once or whatever. But it seems like something that if you do like that, it's really cool. I think there's obviously there's a lot of other books that you can read that are like, oh, it takes your imagination somewhere else, or takes you to a different place if you don't like where you're at right now, or your life is boring.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think it's more important now because we have like websites and all this stuff, and reading is, yeah, I don't think I need to harp on how important reading is, but that means I should start reading more too. So you're gonna become a teacher. What are you hoping to teach?
I'd be hoping to teach biology. You can't teach philosophy in high school, unfortunately.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
teaching kids like weird, like
Crazy theories. I'd probably get like kicked out or
Well,
something. Question everything your teacher has told you. I think
what the hell are you doing,
Yeah.
Mr. Hilario?
I remember I had like my philosophy prof was like, he was talking about how, like, the origins of our ideas all come from people, but people make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So it came to the conclusion that, like, guaranteed when you're younger, your teacher taught you something that was wrong.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And then you just accepted it because they're a person of authority, right? But it's like,
That's the thing too, man.
Critical thinking, right?
Questioning the authority. Like, to me, I've read some literature too, as far as how sorry, this is going off in a tangent, but like in the school system, it's made to, the way it's structured is to have you go get a job after, or go to post-secondary. After post-secondary, get a job and work at one job till you're like 50 years old, or 65 or 67, whatever the retiring age is. That's a conspiracy right there. Like, people talk about conspiracy theories. Look at the one that you're in right now, bro. Let's check it out.
It's like
Anyways,
it's the whole paradigm of education where it's like you go to school, you go to post-secondary school, you get a job, and then everything will be okay.
yeah.
But it doesn't work like that anymore.
No, that's
And
like
like,
I forgot what the era that was, like the industrial era. That's what
yeah,
that was. And I think the school system also is, if I remember how it referenced I think the Ottoman Empire,
yeah,
and that's how they structured the school system is to, okay, once you guys graduate, you guys go, it's designed for, and then when they work, and they set the retirement age as well to 65 or whatever the age was, because most people die by that age in that era, during that era. So
jeez,
anyways, anybody listening to this, you should question my authority and
exactly.
go do the research yourself. But it's if you think about it, if you realize like what you're kind of in the first place, like, oh, let's question this. Why is it like this? Why do I need to learn calculus? Why do I need to learn, like, what's the purpose of all of this? And as long as you know what the purpose is and what your goal is, then I mean, you should be headed in the right direction. But if you don't know, it's like, oh, why am I just doing calculus? Oh, because my parents told me to, or because it's like looks good on your like whatever grades or whatever that you took calculus and now you're going to university.
Yeah, exactly.
So
There was we talk about that in like my faculty too, and then I took a philosophy of education class. I was talking about how there's a crisis in education, and it talks about how like we can blame it on capitalism or like people go to school just to make money or whatever, as opposed to way back in the day in like Plato's time, a good education was meant for you to be able to live a good life and to come out knowing what your passions were. And I thought about it and I was like, that's interesting, because now that we're in a faculty of education, from the very beginning, they were talking about how like 15 years of education research, they showed that they kind of failed their students. Like the whole like standardized testing, like kids gotta be like have to know this and how to do a test. Like it doesn't work.
right.
It's not really like the most beneficial for the kids. And the whole thing where I know when like probably when we all went to school, like the special needs students were in another class, right?
Yeah.
There was like the special class, but it's like that didn't work. Like that doesn't benefit them. That doesn't benefit us either. So now there's this whole idea of, especially here in Manitoba, like it's huge. It's a new paradigm of education, and it's about inclusion. So like to include everyone, and that at the end of their high school education, every kid should have gotten really close to their potential, or at least figured out or have been guided to knowing what they're good at, and knowing what their passion is, and then just supporting the students through that, as opposed to being like, all students have to be able to do this, 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 and this.
Right.
Yeah. But it's hard too, because like our curriculums are set up like that.
I think certain things like all students should know how to do it. Like obviously reading, writing,
Like literacy,
math,
huge.
right? Like basic math and all that. But I feel like it is like it is really hurting the students, especially when I think I read it somewhere that like every child has this huge potential. Like they're already a genius. Just you got to cultivate that.
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
not being cultivated properly in the school system. So I think that the thing that you have to do, if it's not being cultivated in the school system, then you got to get it somewhere else. So where are you going to get the rest of the education? Probably from the parents, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the parents either have to be up on that tip, or they're like, oh, this is what you like actually need to know, or this, if you're interested in this is what you need to this is how you get the information. But if they're not, then like you're kind of like the kid's like, oh, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, because I can't live up to what the standardized test or whatever
What they're looking for.
what they're looking for, and it makes people feel stupid. And I think that's just, that's horrible, because every kid's just like, like you even see like the potential in the kid when you just like even if you're just teaching them in class, right? But then sometimes that's not rewarded. Sometimes it's punished, and it's like it's discouraged in the school system. So I don't even know how we got on this subject, man. Like, damn. But it is like it is an issue, and
It's funny though, because like one of our profs said, there's always going to be a crisis in education because it's evolving, right? Like
and
we're finding ways
it's not
to
gonna
make it
fit
better.
everybody, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
One
not
day maybe it will. Like maybe I'm just an idealist, but I feel like in the next couple of years with like the new generation of teachers, like it's gonna be we're gonna make some improvements. I hope so at least. One of the things I saw that was really interesting already is now it's mandatory for faculties of education to teach like an Aboriginal perspective class, and that didn't exist like I think 2 or 3 years ago.
yeah, I don't think so.
No, and it's like that's huge, like such a already huge development because at the end of the day, like Canada is an Aboriginal land, right? Like,
Well, I think it's good too for those who are Aboriginal to see the value that their culture that maybe is lost to them actually gives them, like the value that is there. Maybe they haven't really discovered it, but it helps them realize that it's there and it can help you.
and not just for like the like First Nations people, but like everyone too,
Everybody,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
once like they're so like their culture is so rich from just by seeing this class and like all their history, and it's like historically Canada kind of screwed them over like really freaking bad, but
yeah,
like no one wants to talk about it because it's kind of like it's awkward, right? But it's like now that teachers are being taught how to incorporate that into the classroom and like make everyone kind of realize what happened. I just think it's going to be beneficial because
I think so too.
yeah.
I'm really into that that aspect of okay, this is the value that it can bring, and it's I don't know what the whole like yeah, like you said it, like it's awkward for people to speak about Aboriginal issues or like anytime anybody brings up race, so oh, you're being racist and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. No, we're just discussing what is and what could possibly be beneficial. So I think that's good to hear that that's happening. I'm obviously not in the teacher's field as far as like school teaching and education, but you know that's awesome. How long have we been going for, man? Hour and 10. Wow.
It goes
Time
by
time
fast, eh?
flies, hey.
Yeah.
Uh Going back to the education thing, what because again, a lot of this stuff applies back to dancing and that's mainly our audience, right?
Yeah.
So I think what's your process like if you care to share that your specific process on learning something and getting something down? Because like you said, there's some stuff that when you try it for the first time, you're gonna suck at it. What's your process in learning something? Let's say it's like this one move, or let's say it's even just a concept. Like, how do you go about learning?
Uh, for me, I got this thing from John Dewey. It's learning by doing. So it's like it's weird to say because like I study philosophy, right? So it's a lot of theory, a lot of just like reading and like conceptualizing things. But the other half is just going out and doing it, right? Like I could say that love is the fundamental thing in life and it's what you just everyone needs and just preach that, but if I don't go out there and actually like care for people or figure out how to care for myself or like build those genuine connections, and I'm just talking like BS, right? Yeah, so for learning it's just doing it. Like with breaking, it's like nowadays I kind of just look at it as working out. Like honestly, I still love breaking and I still love dance, but I can see that it's taking a toll on my body. So
Yeah.
it's more now just like training smarter and just enjoying it. But it's like, how did I learn all those moves? By like constantly doing them, right? And like getting into, it's not even a mindset. It's like, for me, it's like, it's all a way of being, right? Like, I had this like epiphany when I was in Trois Rivières, where I was dancing just for fun, right? Like I was just like, oh yeah, like I taught class all day. I was like, nice, I can just go out, hang out with some friends, dance for fun, not dance for work. And I was just dancing there, like vibing out. And then this group of people come up to me and they're like, you know what, you're really good at dancing. And then that's when I realized, like, wait, yeah, like I've been a dancer for so long. Like it's not something that I do anymore. It's just part of who I am, right? So yeah, it goes full circle. Like it's Heidegger, when he in back to Martin Heidegger, the guy that wrote Being in Time. He also wrote What is Metaphysics. Essentially, he talks about at the very first level is thinking. So that's when people just think about something like, oh, I want to do this, or I think I should do this, or I think I should try and work out more. But they don't really get past that. The next level is doing. So that's when they're like, I think I should work out. I'm going to go do it right now. And then they actually go through the process of like doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Next part is appearing. So this is like the connection with other people. It's like you look, you're thinking that you should work out. You actually do work out, and then people see that you work out. Like you appear that you're actually doing something. Mm-hmm. The issue with that part is that now that we have like social media and all that stuff, you can make it look like things are really going well, but in reality they're not.
Yeah.
Like that's a big issue, right? Like freaking Snapchat has filters, man. Like you see that filter with the flowers? It's like, oh, okay, well there's one of flowers and it like contours your head. So like if you take that, if you use that filter, it's like, oh yeah, you look really good. But in real life, maybe you're not the greatest person. And then the last part is becoming. So that's where like you're already on the process of becoming that person that incorporates working out to their lifestyle or whatever it is that right. you're trying to do. And then with that thinking, doing, appearing, and becoming, the full circle is that it's part of your being now.
Oh, snap. Shit. No, it's fascinating to me that you say that because going back to Stalls again, I mentioned Stalls a lot on this episode, but Stalls was talking about this book.
We love you, Stalls.
He was talking about this book that he was reading, and I forgot the steps, but it sounded similar to that, like where I think it was like his process and learning, and like he took it from this book, like how you like how you said he's thinking about doing it and then doing it, and then I'm gonna butcher this, but he started doing it and then like being bad at it for a while, and then doing it, and then finally being good at it, and then doing it, and it's an automatic thing, which is like almost the same thing that you're mentioning there. That's why I'm like, oh shit, that's crazy. And I'm gonna hop around a little bit, but with that Instagram thing there, or the Snapchat thing you were talking about, a lot of people post stuff. Like if you just look at people's posts, you'll think their lives are fucking fantastic,
so awesome, yeah.
Like, oh my god, like this is so, like they're smiling in every picture. They're like on vacation. They like they show like progress pics or something like that. Like a lot of times it's not like it's not like what's actually happening. Yeah. Like nobody posts their low points on Facebook or on Instagram. Like, yo, look, I'm so depressed. Check it out.
It's like some people do, but it's like it's less common, right?
Yeah, and so it's like this skewered. Is that the right word? Whatever. Like it's kind of like an unbalanced thing of what reality actually is for that person, and I think it's more important that. In that case, that's weird. Like that you show more negative stuff, or like balance it out anyways, so that people see, oh, this is like some people go through this and that, and they still overcome it and still come out like how they are in the positive like photos or whatever. So I feel like that's another thing that people need to realize. Like not everybody's having like a fantastic time right now. Like they're going through some stuff, they're struggling through some stuff, but people come out of it. So. Yeah, man, I just thought I'd mention that,
Yeah, it's like, I forgot who talks about it, but I know it's postmodern philosophy. It's the whole idea of hyper realism, where it's like because we have social media, because we have all this technology, we can put on an image of what we want other people to think we are.
Right.
But we take away from what we really are, right? Like, it's like, the filters, what you actually look like, posting that your life's super awesome. And it's like, putting on that facade that things are going really well. But I think it goes both ways too, because like I wouldn't want to be on social media. I wouldn't want to like just like be on Facebook and everyone's just like depressed and like problems and stuff. Yeah. But it's like if you're with your close homies, then it's like you have that free space to be like, like I have some issues. Like, we all do. Let's talk about it. Let's try to like work it out. Like, communication's key, right? Like for me, for I have Instagram, I try to keep it positive, and like all social media, keep it fairly positive.
Yeah.
Not to kind of brag about it, but just so like for respect for other people, right? Like, it's like people want to see positive things. Like, maybe that's just me, but I have this feeling that like I want to see my friends succeed. I want to see people succeed.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I'm not saying not have that. I'm just saying like
it just happens too much, or like
make it more aware of like, okay, there's a struggle and then there's a victory. You
Yeah.
know, there's not just victory like all the time, or like sometimes you lose for a long time. Like you're saying with breaking, like you start breaking and then like, oh, I'm gonna win a battle, then you lose in the first round.
Yeah,
Definitely something that would happen to me in a dance battle, or Mark, and Mark knows about it too. But like you learn, right? And then then eventually you end up winning, like you, how you did at the Boxing Day jam. Which was like, yeah, sweet. Yeah, I'll tell all the Rising Star students that he won. But it goes back to that. Like, I think it's just kind of irresponsible in a way to not mention some stuff you've gone through to get to where you're at right now, or if you've succeeded, that you haven't mentioned all that other stuff that you went through, or people just forget about like all the work you've done, and then they just see you in the one point where you got the title, or you like
got
won
that win or whatever.
Yeah,
it's hard because like everyone just kind of has to realize that like that win or whatever, that life that looks awesome that you put on may not always be the case, right? Or it's like, how do we all as people just figure that out, that like it's not exactly what it looks like that we portray.
I think you just gotta do like what you're saying. You gotta do life, man. You gotta do life, and then you figure out, oh, it's not as easy as it looks like,
exactly,
or all that kind of stuff.
Like all that hustle stuff on like Instagram was like, hustle, how to make like 10 grand in 1 month.
Yeah,
and then you see people that are just like living on traveling the world and then getting paid to not do anything almost. But it's like, if you took it back on it, that dude or that girl probably spent years just like grinding it out, working on their passions, working on themselves to get to that point where they can do that. But then now we want things so fast. Like my prof talks about how we live in like the McDonald's
fast food
era, where it's like, I want all the success right away. But it's like, dude, that can take like 10 years, 20 years, like a decade. And like, how do you teach people that, right? Like, you can't teach someone the power of 10 years, right? They just got to go through it.
Have you heard the story of the Chinese bamboo tree?
Oh, no.
There's this, okay, I'll make it really short because this is the only, like the parts of it I know are what it is in a nutshell. But basically the Chinese bamboo tree is, you plant the
bamboo shoot
or whatever it is, and then you water it and you tend to it for like, I think it's like, if I'm not wrong, it's like 7 years or something.
Okay.
It doesn't sprout until like the 7th year or after that, and it freaking grows like crazy. That's what it made me you reminded me of when you said that thing where like people are just like, chilling out on vacation or whatever, not doing anything and getting paid all this money. They probably did something like that where they like you don't see the results right away. Like even with breaking, you probably don't see the results right away, which you don't, because you don't just like start practicing today and you just started today and you get air flares, or I'm just saying like just winning a jam.
Yeah.
Right. Like you don't just like, oh, I'm gonna start today, and like next week I'm gonna win a jam. Like no, it doesn't happen like that. You're basically the Chinese bamboo tree where you're like tending to that tree, which is yourself, right? Or that plant or that shoot, and then afterwards, like let's say after 5 years, you finally won a battle. You finally figured it out. You finally got to that point where like your skills have like matched what you were thinking in your mind, or whatever it may be, right? So I think that's really important, and people just need to realize that good things take time and effort and work, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And right now it's just like, oh, okay, I want something. Oh, I'll just order online. I'll come in like a few days, or
like everything's so fast now. It's like there's things that do take time. Like so many, like you said it right. Like good things take time, right?
That, and also the hardest things in life are like the most worthwhile,
Mm.
right? Like if you got something so easily, it's like, oh, I got this participation award, like, but you just participated, you didn't win.
Yeah, you didn't do anything. Yeah.
So how valuable is that award? Not that valuable, right? But if you say like, oh, it's been like 10 years and like, I haven't won a battle, and finally I won this battle and just wrecked the floor, just like boom, then that means so much to you at that point, rather than just like a stupid participation award.
Yeah, we're
or
just
that can
given a little award, right?
just by doing barely anything. So I want to wrap this up, but I want. Are there any like recommendations of books or stuff that people should read? Like, because I've been trying to tune into like instead of as well as having like like people talk about a food diet, but mental diet is important as well. Like what they put in their brain, what they hear, what they allow to penetrate into like the psyche of their mind and all that. So what do you want people to read or absorb, and what do you think will make their life better?
Oh yeah. I have a hard time with that question just because I have a very particular like taste in my books, and I know that not everyone's gonna resonate with that.
Sure, but what's been good with you?
Yeah, I'll give you guys two things. Two books that really like helped me out. I'll give you one from the East and one from the West. So the Eastern side is Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. That was so good. Like that's all like on meditation, being present to the moment, realizing that you're enough as it is, and like getting rid of your, it's like they call it pain body. So everyone has this thing called a pain body. It's all like that negative experiences, that all those bad things that happen to you. You ball it up, and then when people like argue, they take it out on each other.
Right.
But once you accept yourself enough and you focus on that pain body, you can kind of like get rid of it. Not fully, but it'll help. Interesting fact with that is that I haven't been like sick for almost a year and a half.
What?
Like crazy, because I used to get sick all the time when I was younger. And like what I learned from The Power of Now is that whenever I would get the sense that I'm gonna get sick, and instead of like taking medication or just like sleeping it off, I would sit there and just stay in tune with that sickness and like pay attention to that feeling, whatever that feeling is. Like it's hard to point to in words, right? Because like we got to feel it interiorly.
Yeah.
And just sitting there and like and eventually go away. Like I remember just a couple, maybe last month, I felt really sleepy, and I got all of a sudden like I felt so sick, like sick to the point where you feel like you're dying.
Oh shoot.
And then I ended up puking, and it's lasted like 30 minutes. But like the moment I felt it coming on, I just sat there and I just drank my tea and just like really focused on like how like that feeling, really like getting really in tune with like feeling that sick until I puked, and it just went away.
What?
Yeah, like crazy. That's kind of pseudoscience-y though.
Yeah, it's kind of seems like, but like, I mean, that's what happened with you, right? So, I mean, might not work with other people, but test it out, yo. There's boundaries, you know.
Exactly.
Just
try it out.
Try it out, yeah.
Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now. It's amazing.
Cool. What's the other book, bro?
The other book recommendation is, we'll focus more on the Western side. So we live in a capitalist society. You should read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Huge. That's sick. Such a good book.
What's his name?
Kiyosaki or whatever.
Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah,
something like that. And
Robert Kiyosaki's dope.
Kiyosaki,
Okay.
yeah. Have you read his book before?
I haven't read that book. I've read what, Business of the 21st Century.
Oh, okay. I haven't read that one yet.
Read
I
that
heard that
book,
one's
man.
really good.
Yeah,
Okay.
that one's sick. But yeah, I should read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah, like, for capitalists, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just because like, I'll give you something from the Eastern world and something from the Western world. But with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it really pushed me to figure out how money works.
Yeah.
It's not the most important thing in the world, but it's fairly important.
Well, in this society, yeah.
In our society, yeah, for sure. It's like, and we're not taught that in school, right? You're not taught like financial literacy.
No, because they don't.
And
They don't want you to be financially
I don't,
literate,
I don't,
man.
I don't know if they don't
I
want
don't
you
know.
to be,
From what I experienced, bro, it's like not. They don't want to keep you down, bro.
but yeah, like it's huge. It's like I think Manitoba's like debt, like it's like 50% of people are in debt, and it's like if you're in debt, you can't build a net worth, and it's like there's all these little things. And what I learned anyway, through reading that book is just like educating yourself, because no one's going to teach you that.
Yeah.
No one's going to teach you how to get your finances on point and all that. And like that book really pushed me to find people that knew how money worked, because I didn't. Like, I had no idea. And I was like 19 at the point, and it's like, man, I want to like move out, and like I want to get a car someday. I want to get a house someday. I want to start a family, and like all those things require me to have some sort of mastery on money, just so that money won't be an issue, right? Like, I don't need to be making like $20 million a year. Like, that's excessive. I wouldn't complain if I made that. I would be able to help so many people out by like donating and like starting up schools or like whatever.
Yeah.
Because excess, right? But with Rich Dad Poor Dad, it really like it talks about budgeting and like how to like build your net worth, different like mindsets and different rules on how like lower income families are taught about money versus how higher income like families are taught.
Yeah, because in the book he talks about, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he talks about his real dad, his biological dad, who's his poor dad in quotation marks, and he compares that to his rich dad, which is like his friend's dad. Is that right?
Yeah, it's his friend's dad.
His friend's dad, his rich dad in quotations, and like the lessons that he learned from his rich dad, right?
Essentially, like the one lesson that was huge is that for like his poor dad would always teach him that you got to work hard for your money. But his rich dad taught him you have to have your money work hard for you. Yeah. Which is like huge. Like once your money's working for you, like you can do so much more.
Yeah,
right?
Instead of spending all those hours working.
Yeah, exactly.
So like everybody has a limited amount of time in the day, like same hours in the day, right? So
and like everyone wants to, like you gotta, like what I learned from that is you gotta reverse engineer things, right? Like everyone wants to retire, right?
Yeah.
Whether they want to like volunteer after or whatever they want to do after retirement, that's their decision. But everyone wants to get to that point where money's not an issue and they can just retire. What people do usually is they start while they're young and think they just got to work until they get to that age of like 65 or whatever, then you can retire.
That's a lie.
Yeah, but like what you could do is start from the end, be like, what do you want your life to look like at the end? And then reverse engineer it backwards.
Okay. So that's pretty much like goal setting, like what you exactly what you want, and then going backwards.
And it's like, yeah, with the whole idea of having your money work for you. Like I was doing some calculations because like I work in the financial industry, and if I like invested 25 grand, so like my net worth is 25 grand, and it gets what's called a dividend. So like every month,
right,
that company that you own would pay you. You could get like $250 every month for free. Just like you just sit at home.
Let that money work.
Yeah, your money's working for you. And like, again, we don't want to get caught up in like being too capitalistic, but it's like, for me anyway, why I want to retire and like have my money work for me, get to that point is like, once I retire, I can focus on my life's work. Like I don't have to worry about the next paycheck. How am I going to feed my future kids? How am I going to take care of my family? How am I going to take care of my extended family, and like offer value to them? I could just, money's not an issue. I can work for free. Like I could teach for free. I wouldn't need my salary. I could go like somewhere in the world, like a third world country, and help out, and it wouldn't be detrimental for my family for me leaving and doing that, because they're already bulletproof financially.
Yeah, and money's just a resource, it's a tool, right? So the more money you have is like the more, I guess, the more like you can access certain resources, and it's one thing. less to worry about. Although once you get money, I'm sure there's more problems that come up. You
Yeah,
come across
yeah,
with that. But
definitely.
it's another thing, like right, like it's just solving that money issue, and then you could work on stuff that you really want to work on, and you don't have to do stuff that just for money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point.
Yeah,
So Rich Dad Poor Dad and The Power of Now.
yeah, by Eckhart Tolle.
It was excellent, man. It's been awesome having you here.
Yeah, thanks for having
We
me. That was
went
wicked.
deep into this stuff, which I really enjoy. And man, you could come on anytime. I really enjoy these kinds of conversations. Cypher Talk podcast. Shout out again to Canadian Footwear for providing us the space. This boardroom is excellent for doing podcasts. But you know what's also excellent? Getting your feet in order. So come down to our downtown location. We have one on Regent, one in St. Vital. Man, they take care of your feet. You know who the best is. Canadian Footwear. All right, we out. Cypher Talk.
Peace out.